All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Offer Oracle. I'm so excited because today I have my friend, colleague, a member of Rise community, and just a very special guest today, April Hunter. So, April, so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited I get to come on and hang out. I
Oh, I
love
know. And I
you.
can't wait to, I know, and I can't wait to chat about this topic today because I feel like this is something that comes up a lot in the space of business, spiritual business, everything else, right? So today, the topic that we're talking about, and I'll give you a minute to introduce yourself too for people who don't know you. Um, but really, I feel like the topic is part of your introduction because you're the money lady. Like you are the money lady. And today we're going to be talking about the energetics of money, really. And like, what is that? And what does that even mean? And how, and what does that mean for our businesses? And how does that mean for how we're showing up and, how we're growing? So I'll let you introduce yourself and then wherever you want to go with this topic of
Awesome.
conversation.
Yeah, so my name is April Hunter, and to the normal world, I would be considered a fractional CFO, fractional COO. So pretty much I figure out where you want to go with your money and help you get there through operations of, how you're running your business. So everything I do is very, very business focused, but as business owners, the end result is always the money in our own pockets. And so it creates this very cyclical nature of like your thoughts turn into your money and then your money turns into like your thoughts. So that's really what happens in my business is we go through that full cycle together. And the whole like metaphysical spiritual side of money is something that I have had to really, really be working on for like my whole life. So um I have been obsessed with money from the time I was a little kid because we really didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. And so I always wanted to know, like, why? How do you get money? Like, all of those, like really tangible questions I think we have as kids of like, why don't we have money? What have you done to get money? And like, why is it just not working? And so, like, all of those things, like, in a very, like action based world, I struggled with for a long, long time. And it wasn't until I really started doing a lot of that inner work that I started to realize that having money and working through money and your money issues and your money trauma and getting money really has everything to do with not money. And so it really is the metaphysics of money. So over on my Substack, which is Metaphysical Money, we talk about all kinds of things. We talk about the I Ching and the mandala and human design and how all of those things really affect your money on a very energetic level.
Yeah, so interesting. So tell me a little bit more about how you see like the subconscious and the mindset connecting to how much people are able to accumulate, right? Because like you said,
Mhm.
the operations, it's part of it, right? The things that you're putting out, all of that is part of it, but there
Mhm.
is that other underlying piece where you could be doing all of the right things yet not necessarily seeing the money or keep seeing yourself in those cycles. So can you talk
Mhm.
a little bit more about that?
Yes, that leads me to my favorite soapbox.
Perfect, there it is for
So,
you.
um, one of the things when I noticed of like when I was really, really sitting there in like the most vulnerable kind of like down points of my adulthood and like really feeling like I had failed was I went back in time and I really started to think about like what were the things that I, as a child, thought that rich people had that I didn't have. Not in like a dollar way or like an itemized way, but like what was that feeling that they had that I didn't necessarily have. And one of the things that I found in that exploration was time and space. And this can be different for everybody because it's really based upon your own human experience of like some people it's like beauty, some people it's like quality goods, other people it's like shared experiences. So like what is that thing that you are really really striving to achieve in your life? And it can change like after you start to explore this, like it can really change. Like, do I still really really value time and space? Yes, because that's what my marker of success is. Like, I was actually just texting somebody earlier of like they asked like what is success to you, and success to me is having the time and space to do whatever I want when I want, and like only work with clients that I really really love working with, and have like ultimate control over my schedule. Like that's what success is to me. And that's not a dollar amount. So as I was really, really working through this, like I kept getting hit in the face with like the abundance marketing. And it really, really stressed me out because I was like, I have been trying to manifest abundance for forever. And I really am at like bare minimum. Like, and then like it just sunk, like those aha moments of like, oh, I get it. Abundance in everything that I've explored personally is the bare minimum. It is like, and we hear this on TikTok and Instagram all the time right now. Like that's bare minimum energy. Like you have to do better. And so it really helped me understand and approach the subject of like, let's think about the vibrational frequency of words and like what is a higher level word. And this is different. Like you create your own Richter scale of what is bare minimum and what is not. So for me, I want more than abundance because that's my bare minimum. So like I want prosperity. I want opulence. I want luxury. I want outlandish, like off the wall. And so then I had to change everything. And this goes into the other part of like what I really feel brings in and calls in success as a business owner is that whole like lovability piece and that whole self-worth piece. And I have a really hard time with lovability just because of, like circumstances growing up. So I really had to change my perspective about like I couldn't even say an affirmation. I had to really teach myself through songs. There's some wonderful songs if you're having a hard time with affirmations. There's like playlists that you can play where you can sing the affirmation as like a hack that like it helps you to be able to start believing it. So after I hacked myself, then I started looking at like how can I cherish and adore myself every day? What would somebody who cherishes and adores me choose for me in this situation? And it helped me to start live in that like higher vibrational thing. And I still to this day like things that I value, things that I can cherish and adore myself with, I just step into that higher frequency where I'm no longer living in abundance. I'm living in prosperity with every micro decision I make. That was a really long answer.
No, I love that answer so much. And I think there are a couple of key things that are really important to kind of highlight with what you shared there. One of them being how your internal definition of abundance was bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're saying I want abundance, but on a subconscious level, you're programmed to think that abundance is the bare minimum, like just enough to get by, paycheck to paycheck growth, whatever that is, the universe is giving you exactly what you're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
So digging and understanding really what it is that you actually are calling in, what it is that you actually want. Now, was it just like a deep dive of maybe different modalities or something? Like how did you come to that understanding that you internally were associating abundance with bare minimum?
So it was a whole journey through EFT tapping is really what like broke loose a lot of those things. So there's a wonderful resource that I use that's like a Maya type tie-in to human design and the I Ching. And it helps you like really address a lot of those shadows and the lines to the shadows of like the gates that we're transiting through. So like every human design gate is 6 degrees of the astrological wheel. So like you can tie these things from like the gene keys to astrology to the I Ching to the mandala, and then like do what I call Bible studies in my deconditioned self because it really is very much similar to the Bible studies of last lifetime of like I want to explore, and this is not, I'm not a line one, but I feel very line one in this, of like, what is everything that I can know about this gate, about this line? What are the shadows? How is it expressed? What is everybody's experiences? And I love spending time in those micro details because that's where those aha moments come for me.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Wow, that's really powerful. I agree. I think that which I know we're going to be talking about in our part two of this little mini series here, a little bit more about human design. I know for me as well, learning these things and understanding these things has been really, really huge. And I'll never forget because I also grew up with not a lot of money and have been on a long journey of cracking the code, right? Like what is the secret to success and all these things. And in, the years of doing all of that deep work, definitely got to a lot of belief work and things of that nature. And understanding and learning my human design was definitely really key in all of that. And I remember learning about the money line and then being shocked to see that I had it. I'm like, how do I have the money line? Because I've not felt like I have the money line. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it's really interesting. And yeah, EFT tapping is really, really powerful, really, really powerful in just really uncovering. I feel like it really kind of bridges
Mhm.
that like physical and spiritual level of giving away for what those deeper thoughts or deeper beliefs or deeper feelings even are, to sort of come up to
Mhm.
the surface to be seen. And kind of tying it back to the topic of the subject too, of just the metaphysics of money and the energy of money. I think what we're really getting at here is that it actually has nothing to do with money,
No.
and it actually has everything to do with you, right, as an individual, and the energy you're holding and the beliefs that you're holding about money and about yourself,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So, when I do tapping, I do human design based tapping. So I have to know what your human design chart is before I will tap with you. And it's because um, everybody has every part of the chart, but not every part of the chart is activated all of the time. Like it could be like a transit type thing coming in and affecting you, or it could be, like some of those other things. So, um, when you're able to isolate some of those things, like part of the reason that what I write about on Metaphysical Money, every Sunday I put out a Sunday energy prep article, and it's so that you can help isolate some of those radical emotions and feelings that are out there because of the transits. One of the things when I was going through and like learning sort of human design and like figuring this all out was like I was having these feelings that I wasn't used to, and they seemed much more pronounced than normal. And I was like, why the heck is this even going on? And like tapping through them. But then I started to realize like these are all things that the transit is affecting. And so, like, if I can isolate that and I can also isolate like what is my natural human design state, then I can know like this other little area that I need to be tapping on is probably like a shadow area that's very, very much affecting my money. Because if this is what everybody else is feeling and this is my normal status, then like this is what I really need to be focusing on right now. And so I think it really propelled a lot of the healing that I did around money because I was able to isolate all of those free radicals of energy.
I love how you described that. I really love how you describe that with the way that the transits affect your gates and how. So if I understand you correctly, are you sort of demonstrating the characteristics of the shadow aspect of the transit,
Mhm.
whereas instead you needed to anchor into the energy of your own chart, right? So
Right.
instead of feeling that influence coming back in. Now, curious, and we might be over people's heads thinking who have no idea, or listening who have no idea, like anything about human design, but I'm going to ask anyway because I care. So is that only if you are like if you don't have an active gate, or do you also notice that even if you do have that gate active?
So some of it really just depends upon where you are in your journey with yourself. Like as you start to understand your natural state, as you start to like decondition yourself from everything that you were taught and you start to really live that authentic life, that becomes much easier to find. Like if you are brand new to human design, if you're coming in and like you're a level 10 on all of your psychology like radical sud scales, then like there's going to be a lot more to filter through. And so it's really just like a filtration system for me of like really starting to identify like what is going on. One of my superheroes, it's probably autism, is pattern recognition. And so like that's a way that I'm filtering all of the data to figure out like what is the pattern of what
Mm.
when this comes up or what happened here. Is this like a is there an actual pattern? Is it transit related? Is it when I am encountering another person? And so then it's electromagnetic connection that's causing this triggered feeling. And that way it really helps me to understand like what the heck is even going on? And should I be seeing this person or am I completely triggered by them? But to get to that point, you honestly have to spend a lot of time with yourself, which I love
Mm-hmm.
spending time with myself.
Same girl,
Um,
same.
and that in like in a state where I know myself, I know my own energy. So it's like if I'm in a room of people and I'm feeling really triggered, Is it because it's a transit? Nope, probably not. That's not in our transits today. Okay, there's somebody in here who I am feeling triggered by, which means I need to go probably tap on this feeling because at the end of the day, I shouldn't be triggered by anybody.
Right. Which I mean, I feel like this conversation for a whole day, another day too, but right, that's where life just gives us all of these opportunities to come across these feelings and these triggers, right? Whether they're
Right.
people that were around, transits, even, right? As these things come up, are opportunities. And if you are struggling with money, right? With receiving money, with holding money,
Mhm.
feelings around money, all of that, you look at this as an opportunity, right? Looking at this as an opportunity to find more aspects of yourself that are looking for love, that are looking for attention, right? That are looking for, different situations. I think, yeah. So
Yeah.
what would be your advice to somebody who, is listening to this and, curious about just the energetics of money and feeling maybe like they're doing all the things, but still not ever able to maybe attract the money they want or hold the money they want, without it just running back out the door.
Mhm.
What would you recommend somebody start?
So I think that we all have to kind of start with sitting there and kind of being honest with ourselves about like, what is my core issue with money? And I will say, like, 90% of my clients come to me, and the reason that they're having issues with money is because money is not safe. And so while they might have like big paydays coming in, or they've just closed this huge deal or whatever, as soon as the money comes in, it also just disappears. And so money never feels safe because we never have enough money. We can't trust that the money is going to come in. And so we subconsciously send out like all of these like fears around money because it just doesn't feel safe. And so that tends to go back into like past lives or ancestors, and like especially as women, like we couldn't even get like a credit card or open our own bank account or like start a business until like 1975. Like we've literally had what, that's like 50 years where we've been able to even play with money. So there's a whole lot of trauma around that. And one of my favorite things is the community that I run, the Money Pot Collective. And it's really all about like, why isn't money feeling safe? Like, how can we counteract this? Is this me? Is it transits? Like, can we tap through this? Last year, for the paid version of my Substack, I started tapping through all of the different gates in regards to money through the Venus transits, because I feel like Venus is like our personal money planet, and then Jupiter is like our collective money planet. And I will tell you, I thought that I was doing really good with money and like had nothing going on that could like affect me with money. And I will tell you, going through 64 gates and every single line of those gates and tapping on them, I realized I still have a lot of subconscious attachments to money. Um, it's things like collaborations, like who your competition is. And it's like I love how I was able to really work through this past year all through all 64 gates and like all the lines, and like really look at all of those different combinations of like, how am I averse to money? How am I feeling like money is not safe? What guards am I putting up that I'm not even consciously aware of that's really affecting my money?
Mm, beautiful. Great. Well, definitely, I highly recommend everybody listening follow April, follow her Substack. I love your Sunday. Actually, I gotta catch up on yesterday's. I saw it come in. I'm like, oof, I gotta catch up because the energy forecast and everything is so helpful, so helpful. And anything else that you want to tell everybody about before we part ways here today?
Not totally. I do have, we are working on, and Alyssa will be featured in it, is the Q4 Quantum Business Almanac. So I put this out with a couple collaborators. They tend to be new every quarter. And what it is it's really a forecast of like what's coming up as a business owner for the next quarter. So I look at it from a marketing level, and then we look at like what each week is going to be. It's very similar to the Sunday Energy Prep article, but it's very tailored for business owners. And then we have our collaborators come in and help us through all of their different modalities and ways to help us process all of these radical emotions that we're going to encounter. And it's become one of my favorite things. I started it last June, so it's relatively new, but yeah, come and check that out. It's always linked on my Substack. It will be coming out that first week of January.
I cannot wait. I can't wait for this one. I know I've been loving them ever since you've been releasing them. And I find myself going to them before every quarterly planning party, right? Or I think you brought it to our last quarterly planning party. And it's so helpful and insightful to have that information to kind of just get a feel for the vibe.
Mhm.
And yeah, I love it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so
It's
much.
it was a very, very interesting thing doing forecasting work because it's not something that I normally do. And so like at the end of the first quarterly almanac, I was like, wait, let me pull a couple pages from the almanac because I really feel that I've written about this before for a client that I was working with. And I was like, man, I did such a great job forecasting that. Like I didn't think I had that in me. Um, and then for this last almanac, there was a point that hit about a week or two ago. So we're like halfway through the forecast. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forecasted this wrong. But it was a aspect that I hadn't considered in the forecasting, which is that masculine and feminine energy that comes into play. So when I had everybody write for the Q4 Quantum Business Almanac, I said we're going to write about rebuilding because after the pressure cooker of summer, you're really rebuilding from a very good foundational place for Q4. And then we got 6 weeks in, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is feminine energy and not masculine energy, and it's all about recreation. And I was like, how does this change everything? But it's really interesting how like I'm still learning in this process of like, oh, like what are these little micro metaphysical details that really do affect quite a bit. So I'm still in
Mm,
the process and I always will be, but I'm very happy to share with everybody.
excellent. Well, we're always happy to learn from you, April.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye.